my argument, in fact, is that if you take proper care of the African child, he is sufficiently equipped to resist malaria. He doesn't need chemotherapy. This is all these drugs. There is enough genetic adaptation equipment that will enable that child to survive if we take care of the environment in which that child is growing up. Thank you for asking me that question.
No problem.
Now, what Ibadan researchers found in the 1950s, Joseph Edozian, who is now the Professor Edozian, who is now the Asagba of Asaba. I was working with him. I was his technician when he was doing this work, but I didn't realize what he was doing. 1957, his research papers came out showing that the African has the background of this research, that the African living in endemic parasite areas, malaria areas, has a high level of gamma globulin. He called it gamma globulinemia. Yeah.
Okay.
That high level of gamma globulin. Oh, he decided that this was a genetic characteristic of Africans. Mm. When those Nigerians came from London to West Africa, and they stayed in West Africa, after some time, their gamma globulin concentrations rose again to their counterparts in West Africa. But when they first came, they were more susceptible to malaria than those resident in Nigeria. So those people who are away, who have gone away from contact with malaria mosquito for a long period of time, had their immunity reduced. Gamma globulin is a component of the immune complex of a human being. So if your gamma globulin is high, it's indicative that your immune activity is high. If it is low, then your immunity is low.
Specifically for malaria or in general?
In general. In general. But what they had in mind was malaria. The other thing they did was to measure the gamma globulin concentration in children. Because by this time, in 1948, Boris Wellcome had introduced this drug called pyrimethamine, which we call the Sunday medicine. You took it when you were a small kid. It has a long duration of action. If they gave the children that pyrimethamine, Sunday medicine, for an extended period of time, they found that the gamma globulin of those children fell. In other words, their immunity was reduced.
I see.
And if you stopped giving them the daraprim and they got malaria, the malaria was more serious.
I see.
Yes. Yeah, so the relevance of that finding today is that it is no proof, it's no foolproof strategy to say use insecticide impregnated nets in order to protect your children from coming in contact with a mosquito. Because that strategy has it's a two-edged sword. It can give the children protection. If it works, it can give the children protection for now, but there can be danger for those children later on when you've taken away the nets and they become exposed to mosquito. They can get infection that is more serious than the child who was always in contact with malaria, with mosquito. That's the first point. The other point is that the mosquito itself can become resistant to the insecticide, which is already happening. Two things have been pointed out about the use of insecticide impregnated nets. One is that it's inconvenient to use. You have to put it up at night and take it down in the evening. And it may seem simple thing to do in the morning. It may seem like a simple thing to do, but in fact, for hard-stressed families living in congested houses, a family of 4 or 5 living in 2 rooms, taking down mosquito nets and putting them up and so on and so on, it could be quite inconvenient. Very, very soon they get tired of it. The second thing that people have noticed is that the mosquito net makes the room extremely hot. If you ever slept under a mosquito net, even when the rest of the room is convenient, under that net it's extremely hot because breeze doesn't go through the net easily. So those are the advantages that makes the use of insecticide impregnated nets. And they also suggested that you can prevent the mosquito by spraying the walls of the house with insecticide so that when the mosquito perches on the wall, it dies. But mosquitoes become resistant to that treatment. So all these things, again, are not sustainable. The drug treatment is not sustainable because of parasite resistance. The mosquito net and insecticide strategies are not potentially successful strategies because of what I've just been saying. There's something else about the malaria death statistic that is very worrying. If you go to an African village and a child of 2 or 3 or 1 year dies, what have they died of? People assume it's malaria. Have they died of diarrhea, dysentery? Because these people are drinking water from the pond, from shallow wells. You know. So, in fact, one very famous pediatrician, Nigerian pediatrician, Olikoye Ransome-Kuti, the brother of Fela, who was a very well-known pediatrician and minister of health, listed the causes of death of children. He's a pediatrician. His inaugural lecture was called That Our Children May Not Die. He listed the causes of death of African children. And malaria comes to about number 4. He lists so many other things. And that brings me to a point that I want to, it's not really part of this lecture, but I want to say that when WHO points out that malaria is responsible for the death of African children, for high infant mortality, and even high maternal mortality, and they blame it on malaria, I think they are giving ammunition to African governments who are corrupt and irresponsible, because African government now say, okay, so it's WHO has said it's malaria that's killing these children. It's not our problem. Whereas if government were to provide good water, just good water, potable water for every family, so that every child, when he drinks water, it is clean water, just that alone can reduce the statistics of malaria, which you are blaming to malaria. Research has found this in many places. That you go around to village schools and take blood samples from children playing football in the field. A high proportion of those children will have malaria, sufficient malaria parasite in their blood to knock out a non-immune person.